Biosafety rules for virology laboratory. So here we will talk about the rules regarding the biosafety in virology lab. Now viruses are the tiny particles that can only be seen under electron microscopy. So they are quite dangerous as compared to bacteria and fungi. During the past 3 decades, 30 new pathogens have been discovered, and of the 30, 16 were viruses. Now in Pakistan, communicable and non-communicable diseases, the data regarding these diseases are available, but here we lack the information security. The most important components of information security that we lack in Pakistan are the integrity and availability. So here data is available regarding HIV, hepatitis B and C viruses, dengue viruses, Ebola viruses, but there is no maintenance, no completeness of data, and thus it is not available to the international community. Now whenever we talk about the virology lab, it consists of 3 elements. First one is the physical infrastructure, second one human resources, and the third one are the equipments and supplies. So these are the key elements. Like all other labs, virology lab is also based on these 3 key elements. Now let's discuss these key elements one by one. First one is the physical infrastructure. Here we look at the techniques that we have to perform in the virology lab. It can be either virus isolation, detection of viral antigens and antibodies, which is also known as serological test, or it can be isolation of nucleic acid. Now, during construction, virology lab must be constructed as a separate lab. It should be a multi-story building. But if it is not possible, then it should be at the end of the corridor so that it remain isolated from the entry of the visitors. So here in the virology lab, like all other biosafety level 3 labs, only authorized person can enter into the lab. Now, once the virology lab is present at the end of the corridor, we can stop contamination. We can follow biosafety standards or guidelines in a better way. Now, pathogens, just like they are divided into 4 groups, the same is for viruses. We divide them into risk group 1, 2, 3 and 4. Risk group 1, these are the viruses which are responsible for no or low community consequences. So here open bench work can be performed. For example, we can make use of immunochromatographic techniques. And one of the example of viruses which are included in risk group 1 are adeno-associated viruses. Risk group 2, it causes low consequences regarding the community. It can be performed as an open bench work or in biosafety cabinets. It includes herpes viruses or the viruses that are responsible for foot and mouth disease. The third one is the risk group 3. These are the viruses that cause high community consequences, but the diseases are somewhat treatable. But keep in mind that here we use a biosafety cabinet. The HIV, hepatitis B virus, rabies, they can be treated up to supportive level. Risk group 4 cause very high community consequences, so they must be eradicated from the earth. Here we use biosafety cabinet either 2 or 3. It includes smallpox, Nipah viruses, and there is a list of viruses which are included in risk group 4. Now for every virology lab, we follow a typical biosafety level 3 lab. It should be separate from the traffic flow. ताकि कंटेमिनेशन को रोका जा सके. There must be interlocking and double door entry. एक door entry के लिए, that is only for authorized persons, while the exit from the other side of the door. Similarly, it is better to use autoclave within the facility so that we can decontaminate the waste prior to its disposal. Similarly, airflow plays a very important role. Either we are using or performing a technique as an open bench work or in a biosafety cabinet. Here the direction of the airflow must be inward. Then there must be adequate space between the benches. Techniques must be performed on a separate bench. There must be space for microscopy. There must be separate room for washing, sterilization. Then there must be adequate water, electricity and gas supply. Walls, ceilings, floors must be resistant to chemicals. Even the bench tops of the virology lab must be resistant to chemicals, alkali or to any other dangerous chemicals. Now, like all other biosafety level 3 labs, basins should be near the entry and exit door with adequate water supply, and there must be hand washing soap that can decontaminate your hands. Now, the supervisors of the biosafety level 3 lab or of virology lab also plan for emergency cases. For example, आग लगने की सूरत में या किसी किस्म के और hazards में, such as electricity hazards, chemical hazards, there should be proper exits. चाहे वो arrow की form में mention हुआ हो, symbols की form में mention हुआ हो, there must be regular exit or alternative exits for the workers working in the virology lab. The second most important element of the virology lab are the human resources. Obviously, for virology lab, we need a qualified virologist that has an experience of at least 5 years in a virology lab. They have to give the accurate report to the patient. 2 junior microbiologists, they supervise the technicians regarding the techniques, that whether they are following biosafety and biosecurity guidelines. Then they have to manage the stock as well. 2 lab technologists or 1 or 2 supportive staff, depending upon the load of the virology lab, depending upon the need of the virology lab, we can change the number of the lab technologists as well as of the supportive staff that have to perform various techniques. The third element includes equipments and supplies. Here we have to use such an equipment that prevent or minimize the contact between the person and the infectious material. The equipments must be free of sharp edges and they must be resistant to corrosion. अगर किसी किस्म की ब्रेकेज हो जाती है इक्विपमेंट में, फर्स्ट decontaminate it. लेकिन इक्विपमेंट में भी ये क्वालिटी होनी चाहिए कि it should be free of corrosion. Then equipment parts should be impermeable to liquids like chemicals. We have divided equipments into 2 groups. Let's talk about first one is the essential equipment and let's talk about them. These are the biosafety cabinets which are required for all types of virology lab. Then incubators, freezers from -20 to -80 degrees centigrade, inverted light microscopy, dark room for fluorescent microscopy, water bath, pH meter, vortex, electronic balance, autoclave, micropipettes of all ranges should be available, such as 5 microliter, 20, 100 and 1000 microliters. Essential equipments also includes enzyme-linked immunosorbent assay equipment. It can include ELISA washer and reader, then polymerase chain reaction machine, that is commonly known as PCR machine. Then we must have a gel electrophoresis apparatus, UV illuminators, to examine the bands that appeared after performing the PCR. Then all types of glassware such as flasks, beakers, they should be available in the lab. The next type of the equipment is desirable equipment. These are shaker, water baths. If agitation is required, then there must be shaker water baths, ultracentrifugation, rocking platform. In the same way, we can divide the reagents depending upon the need of the lab. For example, different types of cultures regarding the culture of viruses, they must be available. Reagents regarding the ELISA technique, they must be available. For example, we use TORCH, that is toxoplasmosis, rubella, cytomegalo and herpes virus. Here ELISA is available for all these type of viruses.